thanks everybody for coming. All my mom's favorite people are in the room, and that's great. It's really great because all my favorite memories of my mom involve all of you people. But probably the thing that I'll miss most about my mom is how she was completely batshit insane sometimes. And would fly off the handle to the point of probably murdering you, and then 2 seconds later laugh and not understand what you're upset about. I'll miss that a lot. I'll miss her crazy frantic phone calls where she's clearly sobbing and I say, "What's wrong?" And she says, "Nothing, what are you doing?" Or every time that she would call me and say, "Well, I have to go, I'm on my way into the store," or something, and then I'd say, "Okay," and she'd call back 2 seconds later and say, "Do you want to talk?" But I don't really have a lot to say because, well, this is depressing. But Doug's going to come up and say a few things, and then after that, Karen's going to say a few things. But thanks for everybody for coming.
I'm going to tell you a story. It's a story about two people who had both pretty much given up on ever finding that special someone. Two people who just felt beaten down by life and mistakes and choices they had made, and had just accepted being alone. She had accepted that she would always be alone because she felt no one could love her. And he accepted being alone because he didn't think he was actually capable of giving love. And somehow these two people found each other and created something beautiful and magical. I first met Kelly in the early 2000s in an AOL chat room, believe it or not. And it was a chat room for snarky atheists like me to debate with believers and just have a good time. And one day this person came into the room with the name Moonstar 530, which you know Kelly fit perfectly. And she didn't share my belief. She wasn't an atheist, but she was inquisitive and she wanted to know about everything about what other people thought and believed. And she found her way into this chat room, and right away I realized this was a smart and funny person that I really wanted to know. Both of us were in relationships, so we just really developed a nice friendship throughout the years. Probably 5 years of just chatting back and forth, laughing at each other's jokes. I thought she was an amazing person later, and later she told me that she always thought I was the smartest, funniest guy she'd ever seen. And she used to think, gosh, no, that guy would never go for a girl like me. I was like, are you crazy? I'm the lucky one here. Sometime around 2007, we both wound up not in relationships. And I did the smartest and bravest thing I ever did in my life. I asked her for her phone number. And she was kind of reluctant to give it after some bad things that happen, you know, in chat rooms, weird things can happen. But she gave me her phone number, and I called her one night on my break from Wendy's. And we just started talking and never stopped. My manager wondered why my break took an hour and a half that night. But we connected immediately, and we started talking for 6 hours at a time. Fortunately, this was back when you paid for phone by the minute, and I remember Kelly losing her phone due to a $600 phone bill, but we just had the most amazing phone calls, and it evolved to where I finally came out to Cleveland to visit her. And I'll just never forget, as I came out of the airport, the very first thing I saw was that smile. And it was a smile I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And I would do anything to see that smile. And people would tell me, her brother Charlie would tell me all the time, whenever you walked into a room, she would light up like a Christmas tree. And that's something I tried to do for her entire life. After about a year of us going back and forth and visiting, I asked her, please move to New York and live with me. And it was a big step. I mean, she was a little country girl, never been anywhere like New York City. Some people told me you'll be back in 6 months, but it was a brave thing. She moved to New York and we started our life together. And I wish I could say it was perfect from the beginning. It wasn't. There were a lot of struggles. We were both middle-aged and stuck in a lot of our own ways. We had different opinions. As she used to tell people, we had a lot of differences. He was a man and I was a grown-up. She said told me much later, there were many times she thought about turning around and going back home. But there was a voice in her head that told her, you have to stay. And I'm glad she did. Back then, I was pretty much like I am now, a know-it-all who thinks he's always right. But there were three things that I did not believe in at that time. True love, the power of positive thinking, and myself. So Kelly had a lot of work to do. A few days after she arrived in New York, I took her to work with me. I was a merchandiser in the organic foods business, and I took her to the supermarket in New Jersey, and she stood and watched as I set up an organic juice section. And you would think that she stood and watched as I painted the Sistine Chapel. She was absolutely in awe and could not stop talking about how amazing I was. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to feel good about myself. I had been at this job for 13 years, had maybe one raise the whole time, had no ambition to go any further. And about a month after she arrived, she said to me one day, you're too good for this. You need to be doing more than what you're doing. She said, you should be working in not these little dinky supermarkets. You should be working in something great like a Whole Foods. And you shouldn't be working in these dinky little Jersey towns like Neptune. You should be working in New York City. That's where you belong. And she said, you should be making a lot more money for what you do too, because you're really good. And I just kind of shrugged my shoulders, and she said, you need to believe that and think that. About a week later, a friend of mine, Dave, called. Dave and I did the same job, but for different companies, and we worked together side by side for years. And he said, hey Doug, you know I'm working for this company, Presence Marketing now. Been with them for about a year, and we are expanding crazy, and they need another merchandiser. And they asked me for a recommendation, and you're the only person I told them I could even bother to recommend that would be good enough. He says, now the job would be, you'll be working just in Whole Foods. You'll only be working in New York City. And I'm pretty sure they'll pay you a lot more than you're making now. You tell me how she did that. They called the next day, and Kelly, before they called for my interview, Kelly said, you tell them exactly what you think you're worth. So we had my phone interview, and they asked how much I wanted, and I asked for much more than I was making now. They called back and said, we got it. And I started that job, all thanks to Kelly believing in me. Over the years, I resisted promotions because I was happy with what I was doing, but she talked me into doing it, moving into sales and moving into account management and getting raises and being told by the company how valuable I was. And if it wasn't for her, I would still be doing food towns in Neptune, New Jersey. And I'll never forget that. A second. Unprofessionally used notes, but there's nothing I want to make sure I don't forget anything. Since I was 18 years old, I wanted to be a comic, do stand-up comedy. And for 30 years, I made excuses why I couldn't do it. I don't have the time. I wouldn't be any good at it. I can't afford to learn. One night, I was driving home, and she called me and goes, how far are you from Levittown? And I said, about 20 minutes. She goes, call me when you get to Levittown. So I called her back and she says, good, now get off that exit, go to Governor's Comedy Club. Comedy class starts tonight. I paid for it for your birthday. You're taking it. You better not say no, you better show up. So for 6 years now I've been doing comedy. And in those 6 years, Kelly showed up for almost every show that I did and sat there with that same look as when she saw me do that juice section. She was the most supportive person. Most comics, their girlfriends or wives don't even bother to show up for their big show. She was there when I would just do a little open mic. And I would just look out at her and see her in the audience, and I would just have the best sets of my life. I said before about her smile. If you look over at that picture, that's my absolute favorite picture of her. Selfie she took a couple of years ago. And I would do anything in the world to see that smile. Kelly was obsessed with Hello Kitty. And if I was in a store, I found something, or on eBay, I found something Hello Kitty, I would buy it instantly and come home, and she would be like a little 6-year-old girl. When I brought her Hello Kitty blanket, she wore that, carried that everywhere she went. We used to, one night I just picked up my phone and went to YouTube and clicked on puppies. And we sat there and for 3 hours and watched puppy videos on YouTube. This became something we would do all the time. And it would make her so happy. One of my favorite things was showing her about New York City, someplace people thought she'd never make it. I'll never forget the look on her face the first time I gave her a slice of New York City pizza. I thought her mouth would drop and she went, oh my God. I'm sorry, Fast Eddie's, you may be good out in Belleville. You're no Ray's Pizza. One of the first things I noticed when Kelly moved in, she had a notebook with a copy of Van Gogh's Starry Night on the cover. And I asked her about it, why she loved that. And she said, to me, that is the absolute most beautiful painting in the world. I love everything about it. And she then told me everything about Van Gogh's life from start to finish. She knew everything. What she didn't know was there was a Van Gogh exhibit in New York City at that time. So I said, we're going over to Manhattan, and I took her to the Museum of Modern Art. And without telling her what was going on, I brought her up to the second floor and said, close your eyes for a second. And I stood her in front of the actual real Starry Night. And she opened her eyes and her body started shaking. She started crying. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, I just never thought I would get to ever see something that beautiful in my life. And as I looked at her for that moment, I had the exact same thought. We did a lot of other amazing things in New York City. One of the last things we did was my company, one of our companies got us tickets to a Rangers game. And she'd never been to a hockey game. This was absolutely amazing. They gave us 15th row seats, center ice. Now, she'd never been to a Rangers game, knew nothing about it. First thing I should tell you is during the warm-ups, they were playing Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight. About halfway through the song, she grabbed my beer out of my hand, and I looked at her watch. She goes, you have to do the drums. That's the perfect wife. Wants to make sure her husband does the air drums. She said, I have to have a favorite player. Who should I like? And I said, well, they started showing pictures of all the players and showed them on the ice, and she picked out this one guy, Matt Zuccarello. She goes, he looks really, really nice, but he's small, but I like him. He's my favorite player. You know what? He's going to win the game tonight. 5 minutes into the game, Matt Zuccarello scores a goal. 1 minute left in the game, it's a 3-3 tie. Matt Zuccarello scores the winning goal. And she just turns to me and goes, one little side note, she turns to me and says, why are they always booing him if he's so good? And I said, they're not booing him, they're going, Zook, Zook. She goes, well, I hope he knows that. I want to tell you a couple of things what I call Kellyisms. As Nichole mentioned, she was so inquisitive and so smart, but sometimes she would ask a question before she had a chance to think it out. Her second day on Long Island, I took her for a drive to Montauk Point, which is the absolute end of Long Island. It's 80 miles from our house, beautiful drive. We get out there, we come to the absolute end of the road, and there's the Atlantic Ocean. And I said, there we are at the end of Long Island. And she goes, what happens if we keep going? One time we were looking for a new store that she wanted to check out, and we couldn't find it. And they put it back. It's because it was back off the road quite a bit. And she turned around and said, you know, if you didn't know that was there, you wouldn't even know that was there. That's my Kellyisms. Next month, Kelly's beautiful daughter Nichole is getting married, and Kelly was more excited about this than anything I've ever seen. She was bought a dress, and all she could talk about. And after she died, it devastated me, the fact that she wasn't going to be able to be there at the wedding. And the other day, I just had a realization that she will be there, because Kelly's inside me, and she's inside everyone who ever met her. So Nichole, your mother will be definitely there at the wedding. And she will be there the next time I get my next promotion. And she will be there the first time I headline a comedy club in New York City. And she will be there that day, some years down the road, when I close my eyes for the last time, and I see her smile, and she and I walk off together for eternity. Because that's true love, and I believe in that now. I love you, Kelly.
For those that don't know me, I'm Nichole Melanie Baker. Holy Places.